Not everyone can get up every day and look for ways to piss people off. But here at GrokTALK.com, we do that almost every day. I can't tell you how many times someone's lost their SHIT and threatened to end us. But we're still here, pissing people off. It's almost like we enjoy it. And we've been doing it since 2006. That's almost 2 decades of news, politics, and opinion, and now podcasts, and we're just getting started. We believe in principles before parties and politicians. We defend free markets and individual liberty, and if that makes you mad, it makes us smile. We're like Grandma after she stopped caring what other people thought. If that sounds refreshing, you need to check us out. This is Steve McDonald for GrokTALK, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you. Welcome back to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by GrokTALK.com and Grok Media LLC. We have lots of things we could talk about. There's plenty of news, local and national. And I'll be honest, I'm still trying to figure out what the format is going to be for this program. I love having guests on. I prefer having guests on, but I haven't really had time to curate guests and do all that necessary background work because I've been busy with a lot of other things. So you get this for 20 to 30 minutes instead, and I hope that's okay. And if you like that, great, we'll keep doing it, or we'll mix it up and do both. We'll do interviews and some of this stuff. So the other thing I wanted to tell you was that earlier this week, maybe yesterday, I published my 20,000th post on GrokTALK. So that's a pretty impressive thing, isn't it? I account for 40% of all the content on the website, which is a little crazy. But not a lot of other people have been able to contribute lately for various reasons, some medical, some health, some family issues. Some people didn't like the interface when we updated the website, so they kind of dropped off and haven't really been writing. And they all have their own reasons. Some people are probably very content with the circumstances surrounding the election of Mr. Trump, and especially here in New Hampshire, where we have majorities in the legislature and the governor. We have a majority in the executive council, and they may be doing other things. They may be taking their activism elsewhere. That happens quite a bit. We have people who would rather be on the ground doing things or in the legislature trying to affect policy, and that's great. Whatever it is you do that you do best or that you're most comfortable with, by all means, please contribute. It doesn't have to be here. Although I will point out that we are always looking for new authors, especially under the age of 35. And I'm pretty sure there's a couple of you out there that do know how to write and can string a couple of sentences together. So if you're interested, please email me, steve@GrokTALK.com, and you too can begin your journey to 20,000 posts. We don't expect you to produce that many ever, once a week, once a month, whatever works for you. It's got to be fun. And when it's not fun, don't do it. Do something else. You know, fundraise for somebody or work for a candidate or hold a sign or do something else that you like to. I don't know, read GrokTALK at the very least and then engage on social media. So this week, I want to cover something, a clip from the Tucker Carlson show that I clipped a couple of weeks ago. It is an interview with Orrin Cass, who runs American Compass. And American Compass is focused on supporting strong families, markets, fostering domestic industry and innovation. They're focused on conservative economics. And he had Orrin Cass on the program, and they talked about a lot of stuff. But in the beginning of the show, he asked him what he thought conservatism was. And I found this particularly interesting, especially since he's asking this question that a lot of people ask all the time. What the hell is it? You know, if you take the left's definition, we're going to force women back into the 50s. They're going to be housewives who stay at home and raise children. And that's an incredibly important job. And it's one that we haven't really been focused on since the 50s, after the 60s, actually, when the sexual revolution started. And, you know, it's really amusing that 60 years into the sexual revolution, roughly 50, 60 years, married women have more and better sex. So the sex revolution didn't give the best advice anyway. So there's a lot of single, miserable women out there who gave up the option to embrace marriage because they were told that they would be oppressed by the patriarchy. So history is showing us that that's not entirely true. I'm not here to tell you that you should be married or not. But if you listen to Orrin Cass, and he talks about the things that relate to what he thinks conservatism's role is. And its role is, well, I'll let him explain it to you. Take a look at this.
Who's on what side? And probably not it's not really an abstract debate anymore. It's like all of a sudden you I find myself like on the same side as people with whom I don't think I have anything in common. So what's your definition of conservative?
That's the hardest question in conservatism, I think. And, for me, it comes down to a focus on what actually matters. And sort of, all of our policy debates are about the means. What should we do? I think at the end of the day, what defines conservatism and what separates it from progressivism is the definition of the ends. What do we actually think is the good life? What are we trying to achieve? And I think for conservatives, there's a very deep recognition and belief that the good life is about more than just the individual liberty and autonomy and consumption of stuff. Obviously, we care about those things too, but that it is much more balanced against a recognition that, the well-being of families and the conditions in which we're raising the next generation and the strength of our communities, ultimately the strength of our nation, the ability to carry forward traditions, that all of those things are equally, probably more important to people's actual well-being. And that as we think about what government is for, what public policy is for, those are the things we actually have to have in focus.
If Orrin Cass is correct, and I believe he is, that families are the foundation of civilization, we already knew that, and that we need all of these things kind of working together for us to have the things that are promised in the preamble of the Constitution, justice, liberty, posterity, tranquility. So I'm thinking about all this, and I'm watching him speak, and I start to try to put together a list of things that the Democrat agenda advances that would help any of this, and I came up empty. I couldn't think of a single thing that the modern Democrat Party does that would support families, good education for children, literally to sustain the next generation who would then carry the flame forward. Couldn't think of a single thing. That doesn't surprise anybody, does it? Here's more from Orrin.
In focus.
So paint the picture of what the end result of a well-organized society is.
Well, I think first and foremost, it is the family. That at the end of the day, everything is oriented toward this question of how do we raise a next generation that is able to do what we have done, hopefully more than we have done, to enjoy what we have enjoyed, hopefully more than we have enjoyed. And that is a sort of fundamental obligation that we all have. It's not a choice, a consumption choice, right? Some people go to Greece, some people raise the next generation. I mean, as a descriptive matter, it is true, but as a normative matter, as a question of should, that is what should happen, and that is what needs to happen. And so the question is, well, okay, what are the conditions in which that can and will happen? We need to have the conditions where young people can see a future for themselves, forming families, being self-sufficient, supporting kids, being able to provide them a good environment. They need to be in communities that have not just, strong institutions and good schools, but also just a basic sense of a common culture and a culture that is going to be a healthy one for kids to grow up. We obviously, therefore, need an economy that provides those kinds of jobs. There need to be good jobs available to anybody who wants to work and is willing to work hard, regardless of what their particular aptitudes and interests are, regardless of where they live, right? The idea that, well, we'll get more growth if everybody moves to a big city is highly corrosive to the idea that we will actually have a world of people raising strong families. And then as you sort of keep zooming out, ultimately you get out to the level of the nation, and you recognize that, at the end of the day, you do have to have a country. A country is not just a market or, an Olympics team. It is actually something with an identity within which people owe obligations to each other. And not everybody is raising kids, but if you're not, you have some obligation to the folks who are. You have some obligation to those kids. And as those kids grow up, they will in turn have obligations back to you. And if you can't maintain that structure, and I think a lot of what you see in the modern West is struggles to maintain that structure, things start to fall apart.
The $37 trillion question would have to be, do you agree? Is this correct? Has he mapped out not only why we're seeing all the problems we see in the culture and the society today, but what conservatism's role is supposed to be in having kept us on track or getting us back on track? And of course, if you want to talk about getting back on track, that's a huge question and a huge problem, isn't it? How do you get back there in the culture that we have now to secure the posterity, literally the future of America? Who is going to carry that flame? Or if you're a Democrat, you want whoever is left to just stand over the ashes. So it's a good question, and I was intrigued by his interpretation of how this framework exists, and I guess at my core it's true. Now, a lot of people, and I bring this up because conservatism has been hijacked, all right? A lot of people, Bill Kristol used to say, hey, we're conservatives. He's kind of a neocon swamp creature, right? John McCain, Lindsey Graham, on again, off again, more off than on. Mitch McConnell. A lot of people, election season's coming. Actually, it's always election season. That's what I like to say. It never stops. And so as the midterms approach, you will have Republican candidates draping themselves in the flag of conservatism with the perception that this is advantageous to them electorally when they're running for office to get Republicans to vote for them. More recently, we've seen Donald Trump have success with independents and moderate Democrats by running on not so much a platform of conservatism. He doesn't use that word very often, if ever. I'm not even sure he has. I would have to go back and listen. Maybe you can let me know in comments if you've heard him say it a bunch of times, but I don't think I have. He just talks about making America great again and the mechanics of how he plans to do that, which we are now watching unfold. He's trying to shrink government. He's trying to create transparency. He's trying to have people held responsible for when things go awry or when they deliberately abuse their power. And these are all things that we've asked for, and these are all things people want. He's focused on the working class. He's focused on building communities. He's focused on getting rid of the corrosive, acidic garbage that has been eating away at the edges of our culture. So, in effect, he's actually sort of deploying the platform or the program that Orange just described to us. But how do you get generations of people to embrace marriage from a young age, staying married, raising children, teaching them values? The public education system, we get rid of the Department of Education. That's great, but we still literally have every single state in the union that has the same problems with few exceptions. It's very corrosive. Homeschooling can only do so much. We really need to take those school boards back, and that's such a hard job to do. And kudos to anybody who tries, because you need to get on a board. You're never going to be in the majority, and you're going to get crapped on by the entire education industrial complex, the unions, everybody. And the problem that I talked about earlier, when we don't have as many writers as we used to, is that they've gone to do other things. But those other things have to include supporting those people when they get into those roles. If you have one city councilor who's a good guy, you got to show up and defend them. If you have one or two school board members who are a good guy or girl, you have to show up and defend them. You have to have their back. You can't just elect them to office. And that's true for your governors and your councilors and your state reps and your state senators. And they're not going to be perfect. And you need to call them out when they do it wrong. And when they do things that don't look like they are advancing the cause of classical liberalism, which is really what this is. It's more God-based, really, faith in God, family, and devotion to basically what Mr. Cass just described. And it's essential to making sure that America not only becomes great again, but stays that way. And that it's focused on drilling government power down to the lowest common denominator. One of the complaints we hear about a lot from Democrats as Mr. Trump tries to trim the fat in the federal government is, oh my God, what are we going to do? People are going to lose this and they're going to lose that and yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, I've written about this a couple times. Just about every single function that happens at the federal level in which we are dumping money to pay bureaucrats to then write grants to the states already happens at the state level. So what they're basically saying is that, well, the state levels, they aren't competent enough to be able to manage this correctly. They need oversight from the federal government. Well, that's not what the Constitution says. These are all rights and powers that are left to the states. And they should be. So as we move forward, favorite progressive word, keep that in mind. I'd like you in comments, or you can shoot us an email, or you can write an op-ed, or do whatever you want, to let me know what you think about Oren Cass's description of what he thinks conservatism is and what we need to do. And that'll pretty much wrap it up for me today. We will see about getting a guest for next week, or maybe we'll do something else like this. You guys let me know what you like and dislike, and we'll be back next week. Thanks.
GrokTALK.